What is the value of a life? How does one measure it? And more importantly, who has the right to take it away? These are the questions that echo in our minds as we delve deep into the tangled web of Brian Dorsey's life, a death row inmate in the state of Missouri. So let's take a step back, rewind the clock to late December of 2006, a time of year that for most of us is filled with joy and anticipation. It's a time for family, for giving and receiving. But for one household in the peaceful town of New Bloomfield, Missouri, the impending holiday brought nothing but pain and despair. Picture this, if you will. It's a cold winter night, just a few days before Christmas. The neighborhood is quiet, houses adorned with festive lights and decorations. Nestled among these homes is a particular house, the residence of Sarah and Ben Bonney. Meanwhile, Brian Dorsey, a man whose life has been marred by a series of poor choices and bad breaks, is about to make a desperate decision. Overwhelmed by mounting debts to his drug dealers, Dorsey is in a state of panic, with his mind clouded by fear and desperation. In his turmoil, he turns to the one person he believes could save him from his predicament, his cousin, Sarah Bonney. Sarah, a woman known for her generosity of spirit and kindness, is caught unaware by Brian's desperate plea for financial aid. But on this fateful night, Sarah ends up refusing him. Whether it was due to her own financial constraints or the knowledge of his dangerous liaisons, we may never know. But her refusal proves to be the tipping point for Dorsey. The situation spirals out of control, leading to an unimaginable tragedy. In a fit of rage or despair, Dorsey allegedly perpetrates the shocking murder of Sarah and her beloved husband, Ben Bonney. In the quiet town of New Bloomfield, Missouri, the chilling news of this horrific crime sends shockwaves through the community, forever marring its peaceful image. In the aftermath, a nationwide manhunt ensues, leading to Dorsey's arrest and eventual trial. The evidence against him is damning, and the jury makes a unanimous decision. Brian Dorsey is sentenced to death. And now, we fast forward to the present day, to the 7th of April in the year 2024. Brian Dorsey remains incarcerated on death row, the weight of his past actions hanging over him like a dark, unforgiving cloud. The countdown to his scheduled execution has begun, with his date with destiny just 2 days away. His case, however, is far from clear-cut, and it has sparked a fierce nationwide debate about the ethics of the death penalty. Does Brian Dorsey, a man found guilty of such a heinous crime, deserve the ultimate punishment? Or is there room for redemption, even in a case as dire as this? This brings us back to the questions we began with. What is the value of a life? How does one measure it? And more importantly, who has the right to take it away? His case, however, is far from clear-cut, and it has sparked a nationwide debate about the ethics of the death penalty. The arguments for Dorsey's clemency are compelling. To truly understand the gravity of this situation, we must delve deeper into the intricate layers of this case. Let's start with ineffective counsel, a term that has surfaced continuously throughout Dorsey's journey. This term essentially involves the rights of a defendant to receive competent representation in court. In Dorsey's situation, his lawyers ardently insist that his trial attorneys were embroiled in conflicts of interest. This is a serious accusation that suggests Dorsey's defense may have been compromised, his fate left in the hands of professionals who could not objectively advocate for him due to their divided loyalties. While this alone could justify a reconsideration of the case, it is from the only argument supporting Dorsey's clemency. Another critical aspect to consider is the overlooked evidence, crucial information that never reached the jury's ears. The jury, entrusted with the immense responsibility of deciding Dorsey's fate, was kept in the dark about his personal struggles. These include a tumultuous history of substance abuse, a battle that can drastically affect a person's cognitive and emotional state. Moreover, they remained unaware of his mental health issues, conditions that, had they been made aware of, could have significantly influenced their perception of Dorsey. These factors, sobering as they are, were unfortunately not the only elements overlooked. The jury did not hear of Dorsey's previous efforts to seek help, of his documented attempts to overcome his addiction. His diagnosed mental health issues were not presented in the context of their capacity to impair judgment, to push an individual beyond the boundaries of their normal behavior. The full complexity of Dorsey's circumstances were not laid bare before the jury, leaving them with an incomplete picture while making a life or death decision. This lack of comprehensive information has led to an extraordinary wave of support for Dorsey's clemency. It's remarkable to note the breadth and depth of this support. It not only includes a former Missouri Supreme Court judge, demonstrating that even the highest echelons of legal authority are questioning the validity of the sentence, but also multiple jurors from his trial. These are individuals who, after learning of the overlooked evidence, have come forward to voice their regret and support Dorsey's plea for clemency. In addition to these legal professionals, legislators, faith leaders, and even some members of the victim's family are rallying around this cause. This broad spectrum of support speaks volumes about the perceived injustice in Dorsey's sentence. Currently, Dorsey's legal team is vigorously working on his behalf, pursuing appeals and seeking clemency from Missouri Governor Mike Parson. This case has garnered nationwide attention, with individuals of all walks of life keeping a vigilant watch. The implications of the verdict aren't local or regional, they resonate on a national level. The eyes of the nation are on this case, awaiting the final decision. To summarize, the Brian Dorsey case is a complex tapestry of tragedy, legal intricacies, and ethical dilemmas. It presents a whirlwind of emotions, opinions, and arguments that have been woven into our society's fabric and are hard to untangle. The case revolves around Brian Dorsey, a man convicted of a crime that shook the community to its core. The crime he stands accused of is not just any crime. It's a crime that many would readily label as heinous, despicable, monstrous. Dorsey, a seemingly ordinary man, unexpectedly became a figure of public hate and fear overnight, a symbol of the worst humanity could offer. What adds to the case is the legal labyrinth that it plunged into. A web of laws, precedents, procedures, and protocols. The legal intricacies of the Brian Dorsey case are enough to befuddle even the most seasoned legal minds. It forces us to question the very foundations of our legal system, the principles it stands on, and the mechanisms it employs in the name of justice. But there's more to it than just the grisly crime and the convoluted legalities. Ethical dilemmas arise at turn, making the case even more challenging to navigate. It brings into question the moral fabric of our society and forces us to stare at the gray areas we'd rather ignore. On one hand, we have a man convicted of a heinous crime. Dorsey's guilt or innocence is a matter of heated debate, with convincing arguments on both the evidence, the testimonies, the courtroom proceedings. Each aspect of the case is fraught with controversy. On the other hand, there are contentions of ineffective counsel. The quality and objectivity of legal representation that Dorsey received have been questioned by many. Overlooked evidence, half-presented facts, and a seemingly biased legal strategy. These arguments have raised doubts about the fairness of the trial. Beyond that, there's an outpouring of support for clemency for Dorsey. A considerable number of people, including legal experts, human rights activists, and ordinary citizens, have pleaded for leniency in Dorsey's case. They argue that executing Dorsey would justice, but merely act as an act of revenge cloaked in the garb of the law. As the clock ticks down to Dorsey's scheduled execution, tension and anticipation build up. The case has reached its climax, and the entire world seems to be holding its breath. The question on everyone's mind is simple, yet profound. Will justice served? But the question doesn't stop at that. It goes beyond the immediate case and dives into the core of our legal system. If justice is served, what would be the cost? Would it mean the end of a man's life, or could it lead to a transformation in our understanding justice? As the clock ticks down to Dorsey's scheduled execution, we are left to wonder, will justice be served, and if so, at what cost?